Hey everybody, it's great to be back for video number 3 in this series. Today we're going to look at 10 different teams that can beat Traya, and that's not even going to include your Jedi Revan teams or your top Rebel teams. For those of you who are just seeing these for the first time, these videos are made to go with this awesome Discord server. There's a bot there where you can type in what team you're facing, and they will show you a bunch of different ways to counter it. So this video is made to pair with those. If you have not been there, I highly recommend you go check it out. A lot of information, a lot of discussion about how to counter different teams. Now, a lot of these videos today are not mine. You can see the original link up in the right-hand corner. That'll take you to the original video. Please go give them some likes. Some of these guys are really good, so I recommend subscribing to them. There's some really interesting theory crafters out there. So just keep that in mind as you're watching some of these videos, that you'll see some links pop up on the side there. So first team up is one of the oldest so-called cheese ways to beat Traya that's been around for quite a while, and that is your Magma Trooper team. So first thing you're going to do is use Thrawn to give turn meter to Death Trooper, who's going to use his AoE, which is going to reset, sorry, not reset, but reduce the cooldowns of the opponents by 1, since none of them will have a buff at this point. If Sith Trooper would have a buff, but his abilities don't really matter. And then you're basically going to use Magma Trooper here as a machine gun. Every time he attacks Scion, he's going to get 90% turn meter, because Scion is going to inflict pain, or at least try to inflict pain, on Magma Trooper. So with Thrawn's lead, he gets 20%. With his own unique, he gets 70%. So he gets to take a bunch of turns. Whenever he uses his AoE, he's going to reduce turn meter. So that's going to allow all of the teammates to take a bunch of turns too. You may have noticed in this video that our Thrawn was faster than the opponent's Thrawn, which allowed for a very clean start. Now, if that is not the case, that's okay. If you don't have better speed mods, it's not the end of the world. You'll just have to sub out one of the attackers for somebody like Shore Trooper, somebody that's got an auto taunt, because Thrawn's going to fracture right away. He'll just fracture that tank, and then the run can continue on. Krennic here makes a great attacker for a couple of reasons, but it doesn't have to be him. The reason he makes a great attacker is because he can put buff immunity on Sith Trooper. In this case, so can TIE Fighter Pilot, but Krennic can do it as well. And then he can actually help give Death Trooper more turn meter, which is great because he's going to be how you take out a lot of this team once you get the first character down. So Magma Trooper kind of buys everybody enough time to get Thrawn down, who tends to be the easiest to kill, whoever it is. It could be taking out Scion all the way down if that's what's easiest. And then you put Death Mark on everybody else, and they will die very quickly with Death Mark on there. Now you do have to be careful. If you put Death Mark on there before Traya is down, they are going to cleanse that. So you want to put you don't want to put Death Mark on somebody who's getting ready to take a turn, basically. Make sure that you still have plenty of time to get several attacks in. You don't need very many attacks because of all the extra damage from Death Mark, but just something to keep in mind. In this one, we got a clean victory. Sometimes the RNG isn't perfect, and you lose somebody, but this team tends to work out very well. Another way to beat Traya that's been around for quite a while is the Danger Zone team. This works with either Palpatine or Thrawn there. Whoever's in that spot's going to get stunned, so it's not a big deal who it is. The turn meter does matter here. You want to make sure that Luke is going first after Han takes his initial turn, so that he can get rid of the taunt on Sith Trooper there. This particular version of the team has R2 in the 5th slot. Jyn actually works extremely well here. I've heard that she actually works better. Set her to go after Luke, and she can remove all the turn meter from Scion, and then you don't get that huge taunt. This team's basically working by just having a ton of burst damage, being able to get Traya down early. That way you lose all of her unique bonuses. So once Traya is down, the team gets much easier. They're not going to cleanse themselves, so you can keep them stunned. Either Jyn or R2 can stun regardless of who it is there. This team is great because it's really pretty simple. There's not any complicated strategy to it. Traya teams are a pain because they've got a lot of ways to mitigate damage, and then they can heal themselves pretty easily. So this team works just because you're providing more firepower than they can resist, really. So really for some of your older accounts, this is not going to be a team that you use very much because we've got R2, we've got Han, we've got Luke. Those are key components to bigger pieces. But this can be a very useful team for people who don't have Chewbacca, don't have C3PO, some of those other big time teams. Speaking of Chewbacca and C3PO, they are in this team that can pretty much win any match at once on offense. So this is the Finn team that is controversial. We don't know if it's going to get fixed or not because it can basically break some of the raids. But it's very easy to run. The downside to this is in Grand Arena you're not going to get many bonus points because Traya damages you every time you call an assist. But here we're using rebels to expose enemies, and then the resistance characters are getting a ton of turn meter from exposes. So you go after Sith Trooper first because he's got taunt. Then you move on, and Nihilus you want to choose next, unless you have some way to daze, which C3PO does actually, not necessarily a daze, but once you get 2 stacks of confusion, Nihilus won't gain turn meter, but by the time he's got 2 stacks, he's already done. He will, if you go after Traya or Scion before you go after Nihilus, he's going to gain turn meter and he's going to ruin this run. It's there's not a lot of chances for things to go wrong here because there are so many opportunities to expose. Of course, the downside is that if Scion gets a single turn here, he's going to wipe out your entire team. So you do have to be careful that you're never allowing there to be any gaps in the exposes. You can see Scion and Thrawn's turn meter starting to creep up a little bit, which is why I actually stopped attacking Traya at one point here in just a second. There wasn't an expose. C3PO has full turn meter, so it wouldn't have been a problem. But I noticed that Scion and particularly Scion had more turn meter than several of my other characters, and I didn't want to kill Traya without hitting an expose and missing the loop. So that was why I didn't put the finishing blow on Traya there. Like I said, it probably would have been fine. I C3PO stealth there under the bottom actually had full turn meter and could have called a bunch of assists. So it probably wouldn't have been an issue. But that's the reason that I left Traya there and then had to come back to her again. She gains this bonus protection every time she gets a debuff, or any of the Sith get a debuff. So that's why she keeps on healing herself. Plus, since I went after Scion, we've got some pain here. Every time an ally is damaged, the Sith heal themselves. Anytime somebody's called to assist, they get damaged, so you get heals on your assist. So Scion's really the ideal to leave for last, so he doesn't damage you there. But clean win, very easy. If it goes wrong, it really goes wrong, but very rarely does it actually go wrong. Everybody knows that these Revan-led Jedi teams can wipe out Traya with no problem at all. But here we're gonna see that Bastila teams can also do the exact same thing. And the reason this works is, so you've got Qui-Gon Jinn in there, who's not a very common Jedi to use, but he's actually critical here because he is going to dispel Sith Troopers' taunt from the very beginning and grant offense up. Then you've got Ezra that does a ton of damage. You've got Yoda that does a ton of damage. They are able to take out both Traya and Thrawn before any of the other team even takes a turn. And if you can do that, you know you've got an easy win. You've also got Ezra who's got a dispel. Bastila's got another dispel. So it's very easy to keep Sith Trooper from taunting, or at least dispel that taunt once it's up. So he's not near the problem he can be at other times. If this is if he's using Palpatine instead of Sith Trooper, that's another common team that we'll see in some of these videos, and his stun's going to be pretty much useless against this Bastila team because they get all this tenacity up to start. They also get turn meter to start, 15% turn meter, so that allows the entire team to go first. So even if you don't have superior mods, you can run this team. This is a very good counter. One that we really haven't seen a whole lot of, and that's because a lot of these characters are now used with your Revan team. But if you do not have Revan, this is a great team to use. I think a lot of us have lost sight of how good these teams really were because they simply weren't around for that long. Pretty much by the time these Bastila leads become common, they were switched over to Traya leads, but they work excellent. Next up is our second resistance team. This one's a Jedi training Rey lead, and it's going to work because they have so much critical chance that they're still able to land crits. Traya lead is an anti-crit lead, so that prevents a lot of teams from doing a lot of damage. Um, but the resistance here, they're going to get crit bonuses both from JTR's lead as well as from R2D2's unique ability. So they're still able to land big damage with their critical hits, and then their critical hits will expose, which allows them to do further damage. Um, Jedi Training Rey is great at crowd control, being able to remove turn meter, days. Having that days on Nihilus is huge, so he doesn't get as many turns. Definitely gives you a lot more time to take this team out. And then Jedi Training Rey also has healing immunity. We mentioned that Traya leads will heal quite a bit, so that healing immunity cannot be cleansed. So even if Traya is there, they're not going to cleanse that. In this video, Traya actually gets left for last, which is kind of an unusual tactic for most teams because she causes so much problems. Not often do you see Poe on a Jedi Training Rey team, but this one was full resistance. Worked very well. You can add C3PO in, who will make Jedi Training Rey teams even more of a pain. You can mix them up and add a lot of different characters. We're seeing some Chewbacca in here. Kenobi is a popular tank to use with the resistance. So there are a lot of different options. It doesn't have to be even a full resistance team. You've got tanks like Holo that are extremely good. A lot of people don't have her. She hasn't been a priority for a lot of people, but she is a great tank to fit in with the resistance teams. Spreads a lot of foresight, can restore health and protection, can daze. So she's a great option as well. In all honesty, a Jedi Training Rey lead is maybe not the greatest option for Traya, just because I think they can be better at taking out other teams, such as taking out a Revan team, for example. But they can still get the job done very effectively. This next team that we've got here probably isn't the safest team to use against the Trey team, if we're being honest, because there is a lot that can go wrong here, but it definitely can work. Here we're going to see a victory on a team that's actually severely outmodded. We saw Thrawn went first. The the Kylo Ren lead here is going to give First Order plus 30 speed, and despite that, Thrawn still went first. So we're starting out at a disadvantage that is due to being outmodded. Anytime you can beat a team despite having inferior mods, that's a great thing. And and really the big reason that this team can work is you have to have first order executioner down there. He is going to stack quite a bit of health, which health translates to damage for him. First order are very hard to kill because they gain health and protection every time they get a status effect, and they give themselves a lot of status effects, and then you see them picking up pain and other debuffs here. We lost Kylo near the beginning, which is kind of big. He is important because he gives a lot of turn meter, and he doesn't inflict critical hits, which can actually be good because those critical hits can actually fuel the Sith. Traya will gain offense. Sion will reduce his cooldowns with critical hits. So yes, you want to do damage, but Kylo being able to do that AOE and do damage without having a critical hit to spread his turn meter is actually very useful. But anyways, once Executioner is able to stack up enough damage to take down Traya, it gets much easier because we've got very good crowd control here. Crew is going to be able to stun for 2 turns. Of course, he gets fractured there, but he was still able to control Sion, who's going to allow us to take down Nihilus, or at least control Nihilus. We're actually able to get Sion down completely there. Nihilus is really the only threat once Trey goes down. You don't want to stall too long, where Nihilus will be able to get his Annihilate off multiple times. You already get it off once. But without Traya, they really just don't have enough offense to get through all of that protection recovery and health recovery that the First Order has. If you get Traya down, you can feel safe that the match is pretty much over. It's just a matter of time. The longer the match goes on, the stronger First Order Executioner gets, at least until he kills somebody and resets his health. Where things can really go wrong with this team, though, is if Nihilus happens to annihilate First Order Executioner. You saw Nihilus get his annihilate off very early. If that had been Executioner that he chose, we would have been in trouble. The same if Kylo Ren on Mask got annihilated. So whenever you know the annihilate for Nihilus is coming up, you really want to try and have First Order Stormtrooper be the one that gets annihilated. Let him have his taunt up. That way you protect crew, you protect the First Order Executioner, and that'll help the match go smoother. Onto this team that I can't wait to have myself. I'm doing refreshes on Django because I cannot wait to have this team. His lead is outstanding, and he can really destroy Traya teams with this group here. So the reason it works is because we've got Nest over here in the corner. She gets plus 30 speed because she's a scoundrel from the Django lead. So she can always go first. There aren't many people who are going to be able to outspeed her when she has that bonus speed. So she applies Daze, which is big on Nihilus. She removes Turn Meter, and she gets everybody debuffed. And that's going to be big because that's what fills Django's contract. So he uses an AoE, Boba uses an AoE, Dengar uses an AoE, Bosk over here calls a mass assist. So we're going to get a bunch of damages on these characters that's going to fill this contract extremely quick. And then once that contract's filled, you get a bunch of extra offense. You get Bounty Hunter's Resolve on everybody, so everybody can die once. And there's just going to be a ton of offense. Sith Trooper pretty much becomes useless. You've already got 3 characters who can ignore taunt to begin with, so that allows you to take Traya out a lot faster. Then once you get the contract fulfilled, then everybody can ignore taunt, and really you can just cruise through these teams. Django just does huge damage output, and then he also has healing immunity that he can apply. So these Sith kind of become annoying because they'll gain health whenever somebody assists. You do get some assist here thanks to Dengar, thanks to Boss special, and those can heal the Sith. But we've got health immunity, which we got right there on Nihilus. He's always tricky to take down whenever he's getting healed because his health pool becomes so large. And then you've got Scion over here who's really not much of a threat once he's by himself. Just a matter of getting through him 2 times, sometimes 3 times. So that can be a little annoying, but again, not too much of a threat. This Bounty Hunter team does extremely well against all sorts of Traya builds. We saw the one with Thrawn here. It can take on one that's got Nest. Those have become more popular. It can take on ones with Palpatine. Palpatine isn't much of a threat to stun because under the Django lead, he's going to lose potency for every bounty hunter that's got a debuff on him. So it becomes hard for Palpatine to land a stun. If you go to the YouTube channel that I got this video from, there are actually several other bounty hunter videos that are really good to watch. So if you're running a bounty hunter team trying to beat Traya, trying to beat Revan, I recommend going there. That link should be popping up on the screen. So don't be afraid to click that. Go check out some of these other authors. There are some very good videos out there. Maybe someday I'll get into the Game Changer program and can run all of these tests myself, but until then I have to rely on other people to help me out that have these teams. I can't wait to get this team. I'm farming Django as quick as I can, but I'm not there yet. Up next is our second Empire team of the day. This team is going to rely on the Imperial probe droid to take out Traya, and then once Traya is done, we're going to use Death Mark. We're going to use stuns, fractures to control them, and they become pretty easy to take out once Traya is gone. Now, fair warning, this does not work near as well on some of these new Traya teams that have stacked a ton of protection. Because of Revan targeting Traya early, it used to be Traya was all about speed and damage, and now for Traya teams it's all about protection. Imperial Probe Droid is going to do, what is it, 99,000 damage. You can see Trayas that are stacked either above 99,000 damage to begin with, or so close that when they gain that bonus protection, it's going to take them above that 100,000 mark. So this is not going to work against all Traya teams. If you use your Imperial probe droid and don't even blow up Traya, you're now playing 4 on 5 instead of 4 on 4, and it's going to be a nightmare. So I'm showing this team because it's a great option against some of the either weaker Treyas or Treyas that are modded more for speed or damage. Not a great option against those that are modded for a ton of protection and a ton of health. In this particular video, we've got Palpatine as the lead. He's a great leader, and you need him there because he can take Imperial Probe Droid's health under 100%. That's the only time he can use that self-destruct. If you need more speed, though, to make sure your team goes before your opponents, then one thing you can do is you can sub out TIE Fighter Pilot for Tarkin. Use Tarkin in the lead. He's going to grant 30 speed to all Empire allies, and then you can make your Thrawn go first. You can spread that turn meter to whoever you want, whether it's Death Trooper to use as AOE and get rid of everybody's specials for the first round, or giving it back to Tarkin, or just modding Tarkin for enough speed. He can remove turn meter right off the bat, 50% turn meter, I believe. It's quite a bit, and that can help your entire team go first. So there are strategies there to make up for mods if you don't have the fastest mods. Of course, here we have the Nightsisters, one of my favorite factions. So far, I've shown the Mother Talzin lead. Here we have a Ventress lead. One thing I want to say is that this is a tough matchup for Nightsisters, and that I do believe Spirit is really huge here. I know a lot of people don't have Spirit and can still run a very good Nightsister team. You can still beat Trey without Spirit, but Spirit really is huge. What we're going to get is, first off, you get a lot more damage with Spirit. You get extra turn meter removal. You're able to remove buffs. So Spirit is really an unsung hero here. So if you're going to attack Trey with Nightsisters, that is really key. One of the big things that can kill you whenever you're running Nightsisters against these Traya teams is the Annihilate from Nihilus. You have to make sure that whenever Nihilus is ready to use that, Zombie has taunt, because Nightsisters can do a lot of damage, but they're probably not going to get through Nihilus before he gets off his first Annihilate ability. If it's on Zombie, then it's a complete waste. That's exactly what you want. It's actually just going to fuel the Nightsisters, make Ventress stronger, grant turn meter. You just have to make sure you're paying attention and are careful on that timing there. You might need to use the heal from Ventress or from Daka to bring Zombie up to full health, because then when she is knocked below full health, she's going to get turn meter, and that can help her take her turn and taunt. So that's one strategy to help her get her taunt back, is to actually heal her. As I mentioned before, I've shown mainly Talzin leads in the past. That's the lead that I kind of prefer to run. With Ventress, you have to make sure that you protect Daka after those first 2 deaths. So you get basically 2 free zombie deaths, where they're going to revive as long as it's not off of Annihilate. After those 2, you have to keep Daka alive, because that's the way that you're going to revive anybody that dies. It's okay if Ventress or Talzin or Spirit die. Daka still has that great revive. You just have to make sure Daka doesn't die, because you're not going to call a bunch of assists and bring people back from the dead with basics like you do with the Talzin lead. So we have to be more conscious about those deaths after the first 2. We didn't get to that point at all here. Wasn't necessarily close enough that we had to worry about it. By this point, the match is down to just Nihilus, who takes a long time to kill, Luckily, Ventress has stacked up a little bit of offense. And then we've got all these stuns, so Nihilus is never going to take a turn. It's just a waiting game. You can pretty much hit auto at this point, and it is done. But Nightsisters can counter every team. Traya is no exception. Then the final team of the night, the 72,000 power Ewok team with C3PO. This team is a lot of fun to play. I'm still getting my Ewoks up to gear 12 so that I can be able to run this, but apparently you don't even need them at gear 12. And the reason that they're going to work is because they take all these turns, and then they're going to do expose on the basic. Like, look at that hit right there. Nihilus goes down just like that. Against teams that are using a Sith Trooper instead of a Palpatine, you're going to have to work around that taunt, but you've got Logray who can dispel buffs, remove turn meter, and inflict daze. So you can put daze on Nihilus so that he's not gaining a ton of turn meter while you're hitting all of these exposes. There's a bunch of different combinations of Ewoks that you can run. Your turn order and your speeds are all going to vary based on what approach you've got. There are various ways to gain turn meter here. There are ways to make sure that you go first, even if you've got inferior speed mods. So that there's a lot of different ways to run these Ewoks. I haven't got a chance to actually play with this team or pair C3PO with them yet, so I'm not going to talk about the optimal strategy here. You can go to his YouTube video if you want and ask him about why he did the things that he did, or you can go to that Discord server that we've talked about and find out ways to counter whatever team you are trying to counter. Again, there's multiple good Ewoks. You can build several different teams. You can create different turn orders depending on what you're trying to do. A lot of different ways, but the end goal is basically the same. They're going to take a ton of turns. They're going to use a ton of basics off of all these assists, and then with C3PO, they're going to expose on every single one of them. So I'm sure all of you are familiar about how Ewoks can take 30,000 turns to your one sometimes. Once they start landing exposes on top of it, the damage goes through the roof, and that's what's going to allow them to beat a bunch of different teams. Unfortunately, they do call out of assist, so if we're in Grand Arena, we're going to lose out on a lot of those bonus points because Trey is going to do damage on the assist. But still, it's a great team for getting a win against probably almost anybody. But it works well against Traya here. Anyways, that's it. That was my final team. I know this was a very long video, but we did look at 10 different ways to counter Traya. Anytime you hear somebody complain about how Traya is unbeatable, how Traya needs a nerf, anything like that, I see that stuff on the forums all the time. Here's a video on a bunch of different ways to beat them. Show them this video, and hopefully at least one of these teams will work for them. Again, I'm sure I've missed some teams. Go to the Discord server. You can discuss it, discuss some new teams, throw out your ideas. It's a lot of fun hanging out and theory crafting there, seeing what everybody comes up with. And hey, if you want to help make these videos and provide some clips, that would actually be great because we're getting to the point where I can't just find these teams in Arena. I think I might do Bounty Hunters next. Some of those other teams like that, there's no Bounty Hunter teams in Arena to fight. And since we're excluding all these characters from Territory Wars, I can't even go find them in Territory Wars to fight. But we've got some good people on that server, so we're going to find ways to get all these videos out there so that when these next Grand Arenas start rolling around, we can have ways to counter all these teams that you'll see. So we will get these videos up. You just have to bear with us as we actually find these teams to fight. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the Discord server.